Hello everybody, Craig Warrack here, and this is episode 2 of my 2016 Secret Santa custom project. And in the last episode I looked over a list that I had received and I had to pick a character to make. However, I couldn't quite reach a conclusion in that episode, so I'm going to do it in this one and tell you a little bit about the character that I've looked into. First of all, I have to clarify some things. There were a few people on the list that I didn't quite know who they were, so I've sought clarification on those, and we'll just run through the list one last time. It was John Marston from Red Dead Redemption, I know him. Old Man Logan, I know him. Pennywise from Stephen King's It, I know him. John Lynch from Team 7, I didn't know John Lynch. John Lynch is essentially the Wildstorm Comics version of Nick Fury, I guess. There's probably more to him than that, but that's what I took from it. Backlash, I didn't know who that was. Backlash is again from the Wildstorm comics universe, and he, as far as I can see, is a 3,000-year-old Atlantean who is a master in all forms of combat and can create psionic whips from the back of his hands. There we are, apparently someone wants that. Then we have Tank Girl, I know who that is. Shipwreck, he was indeed the G.I. Joe member of the Village People. The Colorado Kid from the Cowboys of the Moo Mesa, I didn't know who that was. I thought it was going to be some kind of anthropomorphic cowboy, and it was. Apparently it's a cartoon that followed on the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as did Biker Mice from Mars and Sewer Sharks and lots of other anthropomorphized archetype things. So yeah, cowboys, they were cows and they rode horses. Cow riding a horse. Anyway, there we are. And finally, Bucky O'Hare. Again, an anthropomorphized animal in the wake of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So there we have it. That's the list, and I have indeed picked someone from it. I'll just spin my camera around and show you who that is. Give me a second. Yes, beep beep Richie, it's Pennywise the Clown from Stephen King's It. He's very Christmassy, right? Right? Not really. So for any of you who are not familiar with my customizing process, the first step that I like to do is really research the character that I'm making a figure of. And with Pennywise, it's actually been pretty straightforward. He has a very limited amount of material that he appears in. Comic book characters can span decades and have hundreds of comic appearances. But Pennywise here, he's just got the movie, which I guess is the main reason we all know who he is. The movie was, it was a TV movie, a two-part thing that was shown in 1990, and scared lots of kids back then, and adults I guess. But Tim Curry played the eponymous character It, who's personified by the clown Pennywise here. And of course the movie, TV show, whatever you want to call it, is based on the book It by Stephen King. It's a whopper. It's a whopper. So yeah, the TV movie is about 3 hours long, I think. So it's a whopper too, as far as TV movies go. So I did have a watch through that again. I've seen it multiple times, and I did read some of this, not all of this. I've never read it before. I'm not a big prose reader, to be honest. If it ain't got pictures, I lose interest. What can I say? But I did go through and highlight some bits that I felt were important to the visual of Pennywise. A lot of it is obviously about the actual human heroic characters, and they don't really figure into me making this figure. So what can I tell you about the character? So It is a fairly complex thing beyond just the killer clown that we're used to Pennywise. And it's one of those kind of Stephen King things that the more you read into it, the worse it gets. So like it is a conceptual entity from outside of our universe, from an area called the Macroverse. It surrounds our universe and is essentially full of conceptual gods. It is one that kind of embodies hunger and fear, and for somehow it came crashing to Earth in what would become Derry, Maine in the USA, and its essence lived under the earth until it was built up by the humans, and then it started feeding on the humans as time went on. and its main source of food was humans who felt fear. So it caused fear in humans and then ate them. At the end of the novel, when the heroes battle it, they view it as a giant spider. That's how their minds sort of interpret it. And it's female and it's pregnant, and they have to stop it before it can have its babies and spread little baby its all over the place. It isn't, of course, really a spider, that's just how they interpret it. So it's kind of Lovecraftian, Cthulhu-like, in that really seeing the truth behind it would drive anyone mad. The truth behind it is called the Deadlights, or whatever. So its true form, as much as we can see, is a spider, but it chooses to prey upon children and bait them by using the form of this clown we see here, Pennywise. It baits the children to come close to it, and then it reveals its true self, and they get so terrified that it can then eat them. And it preys on children because adults' fears are very complex, whereas children's can be summed up in a single face. So the clown's face suddenly turning into a spider face or something huge, lion-like jaws, terrifies children, and is really simple for it to do. But beyond getting all that history about the character, one of the reasons I went and read some of the book was to make sure that I wasn't getting a sort of Chinese whisper of what the character was about. So, for example, the people who made the movie obviously read the book and then interpreted it. And then if I'm interpreting the movie, I'm interpreting an interpretation. So I wanted to go back to the original source and see what he looked like there. And luckily, it turns out he's very similar to how he appears in the movie. So yeah, the first time we see Pennywise, he's in a storm drain. There was a clown in the storm drain. It was a clown like in the circus or on TV. In fact, he looked like a cross between Bozo and Clarabelle. I had to look them up. The face of the clown in the storm drain was white. There were funny tufts of red hair on either side of his bald head. What are you trying to say? And there was a big clown smile painted over his mouth. If George, that's the kid who's going to get killed, spoiler for 2 sentences later, if George had been inhabiting a later year, he would have surely thought of Ronald McDonald before Bozo or Clarabelle. The clown held a bunch of balloons, all colours, like gorgeous ripe fruit, in one hand. In the other, he held George's newspaper boat. He was wearing a baggy silk suit with great big orange buttons. A bright tie, electric blue, flopped down his front, and on his hands were big white gloves like the kind Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck always wore. The clown seized his arm, and George saw the clown's face changed. What he saw then was terrible enough to make his worst imaginings seem like sweet dreams. What he saw destroyed his sanity in one clawing stroke. So that's what I was talking about there, was that the clown is the mask that it wears, and when it preys on someone, its face changes and destroys their sanity, causes fear. So yeah, you'll see that it in the book is described very similarly to the movie version, Tim Curry there. The difference, I guess, is he has a blue tie in the book. But apart from that, later on they do describe the buttons as pom-poms. Here we go. He wore a baggy suit with big orange pom-pom buttons. On his hands were cartoon gloves. Again, here's this when its face changes. The clown twisted its head and grinned up. He saw its shining silver eyes and its bared teeth, great big teeth, like the lion in the circus. Man, he said, I mean, they were that big. So the clown's mouth transforms into this huge hungry maw. And also the balloons is a thing that I quite like the idea of. One of the victims, one of the guys who witnesses the clown, he says he saw not a dozen or a dozen dozens, but thousands of red and blue and green and yellow balloons with I Heart Derry printed on the side, floating under the bridge. There was a forest of white strings hanging down. They looked like white strands of spider web, and I think that's a good little hint there to what is the truth behind, or our concept of the truth behind, the clown. Those strings like a spider web. I think that's a really good image, and I'd like to take some of that. Then cutting up, just taking out the whole middle chunk, go to the end. This is where they actually witness the spider itself. It raced down the gossamer curtain of its webbing, a nightmare spider from beyond time and space, a spider from beyond the fevered imaginings of whatever inmates may live in the deepest depths of hell. It was perhaps 15 feet high and as black as a moonless night. Each of its legs was as thick as a muscle builder's thigh. Its eyes were bright, malevolent rubies bulging from sockets filled with some dripping chromium-coloured fluid. Its jagged mandibles opened and closed, dripping ribbons of foam. Its body was covered by coarse hair, and it was possessed of a stinger long enough to impale a man. Its belly bulged grotesquely, almost dragging on the floor as it moved. That's its exact, he thought. Whatever it is beyond what we see, this representation is at least symbolically correct. It's female and it's pregnant. So there we have it. That's the description of the clown. I'm sure there's a lot more. It appears obviously various other times, but I'm quite confident that the interpretation in the movie is quite faithful to the interpretation in the book. So what I like to do next is sketch out kind of what I'm thinking with the characters. So what have we got here? So we've got a basic sketch of Pennywise with the main details there. Well, when I initially start a sketch, I start by sketching an action figure, basic torso with, like, there's the thigh swivel, double jointed knee, ankles, and the arms there. So I like to then, see how all this would fall around and where the problems with articulation. And you can see this baggy suit is really going to be a problem. So I'm thinking I'm going to work with some cloth there and try and make that really baggy. And perhaps with these arms, I can probably find a figure that has like voluminous arms, like a Street Fighter Sota Gen or something like that, and add them in. Particularly because the arms of Pennywise in the movie, they have a much more complex design. The bodysuit is mostly just a yellow silk suit. I doubt I'll be able to use silk. But the arms have a green and purple and blue stripy pattern, and I can't really do that with cloth. So if I could find something that's sculpted and then just paint that sort of pattern on, that'd be much, much easier. I need to take a look at the movie again and take a look at his shoes. I don't know if he has big clown shoes or just normal ones. They mentioned his gloves being like big cartoony ones, but that's it. So that's Pennywise, the dancing clown. Over here I've got some other notes I've been making, like trying to think how the spider could come through in the figure itself, and we'll see what I can do with that, whether I can do alternate pieces. I mean, I want to give the guy what he wants. He wants Pennywise the clown, and I would think he really wants the one from the movie rather than me going off on some artistic interpretation thing. So if I can make spidery bits that add on, that would be awesome. But it may be a little bit too much for this project. So I've just made some notes here. The spider, deadlights, question mark. Don't know what I'm going to do with that, just making a note. Spider legs, kind of like Superior Venom that I did, or something like that. Balloons I've got with spider webs. I've got a sketch of the, just a note of how the clown's face might transform into sort of half spidery thing. Spider eyes on its forehead. And in the movie, they are trying to, hold on to Pennywise as he tries to flee, and they pull his glove off, and it, this giant sort of monster hand comes out, and that's quite an iconic image. So you'll see actually on the DVD, the truth. It's kind of like the movie's hint that, there's more behind the clown than just a killer clown. So those big three-fingered hands, kind of important, so I've made notes on them, and then just kind of did some sketches of eyes. Don't know why I did that. So yeah, that's my notes on it, and kind of what I'm ultimately aiming for. So yeah, I guess I have to get started on actually making Pennywise now. But just before I do get started on making the figure, there's one piece of research that I always like to do, which is look at what customizers have already done as far as this character is concerned. So I go over to figurerealm.com and I always do a search, and some people have made some Pennywise figures before. However, there's nothing there that really stands out for me as having any great ideas to sort of solve any of the problems I'm envisioning in my mind, and some of them are kind of reassuring me that I've got the right ideas about where I'm going in this thing with the cloth and the sculpt mixed together. And I'll see you in the next episode when I'll start making this guy. Hopefully he will be a total mess. He's going to be great, of course. It's going to be great. It's going to be great, Greg. It's going to be great. Okay, well, I'll see you then. Bye.